So our presentation is about some of the artifacts that will come from this the collection that is at the basis of the Bucharest Municipal Museum. So this is the Maria and Dr. George Severeanu collection. George Severeanu is the founder of the Bucharest Museum, which was created in 1939, starting from the 3,000 archaeological artifacts that he gathered and over 11,000 numismatic finds. So the museum has been reopened for a few years now, and we are even displaying some of the pieces that we will be presenting to you today. At the same time, we are trying to place some of these finds into their proper archaeological and historical context, which is, as you know, very difficult to do sometimes when you deal with museum collections that are very old, and sometimes not all the information are being preserved. But we are trying to do this by means of analogies and trying to discuss with our colleagues and our partners, focusing mainly on the Black Sea area and, of course, some of the eastern part of the empire, because some of the pieces have analogies in Dacia or other neighboring provinces. Some of the first pieces that we would like to present are more related to magic than they do to apotropaic functions, but we will also slowly get to that. So some of the first pieces are gemstones. The first one that we would like to talk about is a depiction of the triple goddess Hecate with a reversed inscription. This one was found, it was preserved in the ledger of the museum as being discovered in Romania. We do not know exactly where in Romania, and this leads us to another issue and discussion, as our colleagues working on this in this part of the Roman Empire well know. There are not so many finds that can be used for analogies and just trying to get a larger picture of the use and distribution of such magic or such magical artifacts. So this depiction of Hecate is made from green jasper, and she is depicted with all of her famous attributes and the dogs that are her chosen animals, and with a lunula, because she is sometimes associated with the goddess Selene. And in the Black Sea, she is also there are also finds in the Black Sea that associated with Apollo and Artemis. Unfortunately for us, on the Black Sea coast, there are not so many finds partaking to the cult of Hecate. So there's only one small sculpture that was discovered in Tomis, but there are over 20 finds with depictions of Hecates or related to her cult in Dacia. So we can easily assume that also this gemstone probably originates from there. So because there are several other cults, which is a bit strange for us, because Hecate's cult is an Asia Minor cult. Her main temple is in Lagina, and the Black Sea cities have had long and enduring relationship and trading relationship of both goods and people with Asia Minor. So it is a bit odd that we do not find more proof or more objects relating to the transfer of cultural materials from the Asia Minor to the Black Sea, as we do in other types of artifacts. Excuse me. All right. So this is I like to use this map. It's from the Limes project because it shows very well the military fortifications, and it's quite accurate when it comes to the organizations of military forts in Dacia, and also showing the Limes and the main fortifications in Scythia Minor, which is modern day Dobrogea. At first part of Moesia Inferior, starting with the 4th century, it is a single province named Scythia Minoris. I am using this map because it was very interesting for us to notice that most amulets and most objects pertaining to this area of magic were discovered mostly in Dacia, and not just in Dacia, but in military forts. They are related to the military presence and not so much into civilian sites. The most similar find is from a collection of the Romanian Academy, and this time the triple depiction of Hecate is related to an image of Sol Invictus. Sol Invictus again is another deity whose cult is more popular in Dacia than it is in the Black Sea. And in our collection, we also have a ring that we believe was initially meant for magical practices, but in our case, unlike other finds from the area, Sol Invictus is not depicted as he usually is in his chariot, but rather with some lettering and some very unclear yet, although we have tried to perform some RTI, unclear symbols, which lead us to believe that this was used for magic. And also from other sources, we have found that this burnt carnelian is also something that is related to magical practices. This one comes from southern Romania, just as the soul in the chariot. So again, we are dealing with finds that come from places that are always with a very clear military presence. The single Abraxas gemstone in our collection is the one depicting Harpocrates sitting on a lotus. This is a very famous and very well-known depiction between Iris and Osiris. This is also green jasper. It is unclear where the gemstone was discovered, but it has we do have some Abraxas. Gemstones known from the territory of Romania, again mainly in Dacia, where all of these foreign cults have been more easily penetrated, apparently and ironically, by comparison to the sites on the Black Sea coast. One of the most interesting pieces we have in our collection, and to my knowledge, there is only one other similar depiction discovered in Dacia at Mycia. And if we remember from Anna's presentation, Mycia is a very rich site that offered a lot of artifacts. It is this depiction of Eros and burning the butterfly. So this is it refers to the mythological story of Amo and Psyche, and this is also known to have been used in magical rituals, to especially for love rituals. But this is very rare, not very we do not find these depictions in these gemstones with this depiction in Romania. So thus far there are only two known objects coming from clear archaeological contexts, whereas the few other finds from private collections or from collections from other institutions have no place of discovery. Again, there are some other small representations of Eros in our collection that we do consider that were initially probably mounted, given the traces on their back, they were mounted on jewelry. Just like the one here, this one was preserved, mounted on a mounted in a gold necklace. The necklace is modern. It was made in early 20th century, and this amethyst gemstone of Eros, which is a bit different than some of the other gems, because it depicts Eros frontally with his downwards torch, which is much more similar to the Thanatos depiction, to the depictions that relate to the afterlife. And what we have seen once we have performed RTI, Eros is quite, the face of the god is quite sketchy. It's not, there was not much refinement that went into rendering his face. But unlike the other ones, if you look at the lower image, it seems that he's also being depicted with his phallus, as he's usually depicted naked. And here are the other depictions of Eros and Thanatos with the same downwards torch, which is a reference to the afterlife. Usually these depictions are found on sarcophagi and funerary finds and architecture, and finding them mounted in jewelry as personal objects can indicate that they were also used as apotropaic or had some other personal meaning to the person wearing them. And these are two gems that we have not found a purpose for them as of yet. Usually, the rooster has been associated with magical practices, and gemstones that usually have written formulae or letters on the back. They are also associated with magical practices. This one seems to be an imperative to the second person, to the second person. So we are not sure what it says, but according one of our colleagues, an epigraphist, has suggested that it might mean plow. So the order to plow. Again, it's very hard. We have not found an analogy for this association between this bird and these types of lettering written in this way. The glass gemstones on the gemstone on the bottom also has lettering that can be read in a mirror. So it could mean, so one of the meanings of the word could be present. So this may not be an amulet or an apotropaic, but if it is not to be read as we have read it, then it could have a completely different meaning that is of which we are yet unaware. The gryllos, we only have one gryllos in our collections, but there are a lot that are known. And here we are entering into the amulet, into the category of actual amulets, as they were worn for repelling the evil eye. And there are several that are kept in collections in institutions in Romania. Not so many discovered in archaeological contexts. And these, but most of the amulets that we have against the evil eye are the fascina, the satiricasina, the phalli. So we do have phallis, the phalli that have been kept in the collection, and one of them that we know of comes from the Danube. So this is the site at Cladova, and then the other one comes from Tomis. There are still some that are known, but most of these phallic amulets, they were discovered in again in military camps. So they are related to the god Fascinus. So, so young boys would wear them to repel the evil eye, but also it is said that generals would also wear them. Some of these also have the depiction of the female genitalia on the other side. And we are hoping to perform some XRF. Unfortunately, we do not have we don't have data to do actual comparison. So even if we would perform XRF analysis on the bronze pieces from our collections, they would only tell us the relations between themselves and not to actually identify the source, or if they are from the same workshop or from the same area as others. So this would be a very interesting project for, at least for bronze artifacts, to create a small database so we can just see if they could originate from the same place or workshop. So here again, I am coming back to the map, and I am insisting on the idea that most of these amulets, they come from Dacia, they come from fortified military sites, and not so much from civilian settlements. The only phallus that I know of that was discovered in a civil settlement was actually from a rural settlement in the middle of Roman Dacia, and it was a veteran rural settlement, and it was found in a public area. But this, to my knowledge, this is the only one that was found outside of a military encampment. If we look on the internet, we find all shapes and sizes, and which this brings me again to this need to have a database. Like, for instance, we have in the case of pottery, when we try to determine the source areas for certain types of vessels. I believe that this would be extremely useful to be done in the cases of certain types of amulets and small objects from the same typology. Going further with the apotropaic finds in our collections, we have two depictions of the Gorgon. They are dating from the 5th, 4th centuries BC. They are the oldest we have in our collection. Only one of them, the one on the right, has a place of origin, which is Tomis again. Usually in the beginning, as Medusa was depicted in a grotesque form, and later on, she became, starting with the 2nd century especially, she becomes depicted as a young woman. We find mainly cameo depictions of Medusa when it comes to gemstones. For the first three, we have no place of origin, but for the double ring, which preserves only one bezel with the cameo of Medusa, we know it comes from Bulgaria, very likely Durostorum, which is again a site on the Danube. And the ones that are in bronze, the bronze appliques of the Medusa, most of them come from Tomis. So in this case, we do have more finds of this type of the apotropaic type that are discovered in the Black Sea sites. For analogies, most of them, however, come from again from Dacia. So we have from Ulpia, from Mysia, which is an eternal source of analogies for most of these types of finds, but also at Durostorum, which I mentioned is the source of the double bezeled ring. And the depiction goes on, and we find it on also different other types of mediums, such as glass, terracotta, a lamp, and a sculpture of Medusa from Apulum. Last but not least, we only have I like to enter here two objects that are later, so they are from 5th century and for the 7th, 8th centuries. I'm using them as apotropaic amulets because even though they are Christian, the message that is inscribed on these objects, they make them very similar to to amulets. So for instance, the belt buckle, it's not a dedication. It has an inscription that says Saint Michael help he who wears this. And I think this is very clearly meant as a protection, as something inscribed for the protection of the wearer, as well as the ring, which is early Byzantine, which is again with plea for help from Cadrantus, which is probably a late variant of Vadatus. Okay, thank you very much.